Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to see some familiar faces on the call and great to have so many new faces as well. So my name is Jules Barton. I did the full-time MBA at Cranfield back in 2013, 2014. And I was the Vice President of Alumni for the School of Management. Once you join Cranfield, you're always going to be part of the Cranfield family. And you'll see we've got other alumni on the call as well. So we're just going to run through some introductions, the agenda, and some housekeeping before we kick off. So we are recording today's session. Please stay on mute so we can hear all of the speakers. The Cranfield MBA is interactive and experiential, so please put your videos on if you're happy to. And we will finish today's webinar by 2 o'clock. So team, if you could wave when I introduce you. We have Stephen Crabb, who's our Senior MBA Career Development Manager. So you'll get to know Stephen very well during your MBA here. You'll have one-to-one sessions with him, and he'll be a crucial point of contact throughout your MBA journey. And Stephen will shortly be giving a presentation. So we have Niels Dooley, who's our MBA Employer Engagement Manager. Niels works with many of the employers that come to hire the Cranfield MBA graduates, so a great person for you to know. We have Helen Knight, our Executive Development Manager. Most of you, if not all of you, will know Helen. Helen is a key contact during your admissions process and beyond, and holds the key to you being accepted on the MBA. So we also have our alumni, Lottie Wood. Lottie finished her full-time MBA last year and is a management consultant at PwC. And we have alumni Sweeter, who did her MBA the year before, 2021, and is a procurement business partner at Fidelity International. So after Stephen's presentation, we have some questions for our alumni, and we then have a general Q&A session. So thank you to all of you who sent your questions ahead of the webinar. Please do ask questions throughout. Whether it's about the careers, Cranfield, campus, the MBA, the application process. Please put your questions in the chat box at the bottom. Please also feel free to say hello. So Stephen's going to give you an overview of the careers service and careers support for you during your transformation MBA at Cranfield. And Niels, if you can share your screen, and then over to you, Stephen.
Great, thank you. Okay, welcome everybody. Really nice to have the opportunity to meet anybody that I haven't yet already had the opportunity to speak with. So for the kind introduction, thank you, Jules. I spend a lot of my time working with the MBA students in developing their career planning strategies that align with their future career aspirations, and working alongside Niels and the wider team, we work to help people realise and actually implement those plans and hopefully align with the career path or final opportunity post-completion that they aspire to. So this is a little bit of an overview. If you could click forward for me. Some of the resources as a bit of a snapshot. I'm going to go into these in a little bit more detail, but ultimately we engage with you pre-arrival. A lot of the work that we do is to gear you up for the future processes of application, and a fundamental part of an application for any job is still at this moment a CV. So having something that's well crafted, well articulated, that conveys the message that you require it to, should you be looking to transition, and that could be industry sector, geographical location, or simply the functional role itself, then you need to be able to represent yourself at that first phase. And part of the reason why we get you to do it so early on is because for anybody that has an interest in making that kind of triple jump, as I've just mentioned, for those 3 different areas, we promote, and you have an open opportunity to apply for what's called a leadership development program, very similar to the graduate programs, but they're geared at an experienced MBA level hire. So people like yourselves that have got some prior industry experience, mid to senior tier management level, and looking to either transition or elevate within their chosen field of expertise. So we'll introduce you very early on to something called VMOC, which is our AI CV critiquing software, and that will give you line-by-line feedback to enhance the content within the written document that you'll utilize for some of those early applications. This will also form a part of a process that you can adapt and use for tailored applications moving forward. So a real great starting benchmark. There are recently some additional modules that we have acquired specifically for your utilization within VMOC. So we are heavy advocates of networking, and I'll talk about that more in a moment. But as a part of that process, one of the most utilized professional networking platforms is LinkedIn. So within VMOC, they have what's called Aspire. And like your CV, the platform will critique and analyze and help you enhance your online profile within LinkedIn. If that's something you don't already have, I definitely encourage you to explore it moving forward. There are two other elements within VMOC that you now have access to. I'll come on to those in a moment, one being elevator pitch, about a personal branding video and how you present yourself. But the other one, more importantly, that we're finding quite a lot of uptake at the moment is through something called Optimizer, all within the VMOC platform. So this little kind of bottom right symbol on the wheel is something around uploading a job description, uploading your CV or tailored application, and it will give you a comparable in terms of word recognition and word association, a scoring of how well you meet the requirements of that role, and then give you advice about how to enhance the content so that you stand a much better chance of success. Because a lot of the larger corporate organizations utilize things called application tracking software. And that basically is scanning your CV and using very similar techniques to what VMOC's coding and software utilizes to identify strong matches and applicants for the roles within that company. And the idea is to get you used to that process, strengthening the content within a written application and standing out so that you actually progress to the next stage. So that's something that we'll introduce and invite you to at a very early stage, pre-arrival. And then obviously we'll work to develop something around a yearbook representing all of you to our actual partners and clients alike, for multiple points, whether that's future recruitment, whether that's for you to explore projects and internships internally, and or for anything else you might like to apply to throughout the course of the year. So that's probably one of the first things that I'd like to draw your attention to. We run a host of other sessions. Information sessions is something that I'd like to bring your attention to as well. For anybody that is looking for a bit of a transition and would like to know more about a particular sector or a type of functional role or a career transition, we run information and employer presentations. They can be networking opportunities, recruitment, or general networking for information gathering about that sector of interest. So just to give you a quick snapshot, we have a dedicated MBA speaker series. I think one of the first ones we kicked off last year was around financial services, and we have representation and senior product networks in MasterCard, JP Morgan, and heads of business management at senior level in other industries. Also, following that, we had things around digital and high-end tech. We had representation from Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft, for example, and other professional financial services, including some of the big four and banks, as well as an overlap in retail, manufacturing, and other panel discussions throughout the year. So hopefully that will give you a bit of an insight into some of the activities that you can engage with that will help you develop both your knowledge and your industry sector insight when you come to position yourself throughout the course of the year. So I hope that gives you a quick snapshot. We obviously run a host of other activities throughout the year, and I'll touch on those in a moment. Click forward to the next slide for me. So this is something we're really quite excited about. So within the new Transformational MBA, we are embedded as a fundamental resource and supports within your course delivery. So having us so closely integrated within your studies means that you will hopefully be aligning not just your taught course content and the knowledge and methodology. You're allowed to or have the opportunity to apply that in practice through a number of different mediums. And one of the things that I really wanted to draw your attention to is about the first one on here, if you can read that, around the opportunity to take one of these 3 pathways, and the first one being internships. A great way, and I'm really excited about this being launched this year. It's a brilliant way for you to actually apply that learning methodology in a real life, practical business environments. They can be real life business projects around business needs, can be around a particular resource or requirement, a consultancy, analytical piece of work, normally run for a two-month period. Will sit at the back end of term 3, term 4, where you'll actually then be able to apply a lot more of the learning that you've undertaken in the first 2 terms. You have a dedicated liaison projects manager that will support this process with you and guide you and run some profiling to understand prior experience, future aspirations, and what you're hoping to achieve post-completion. And once they've mapped that out, hopefully some of the opportunities and internships that are brought in with our tailored partners are aligned to those areas of interest for you to then take forward. So just to give you a quick idea, some of the consultancies and companies that we've had this year alone, I can't give you outputs at this moment because it's the first year we're piloting it, but Tata Consulting and consultants, biased roles. We've had Oracle in terms of cybersecurity, impact, engaging with hybrid working, machine learning and AI, and sustainability in tech. We've had Arup, civil aviation, engineering, financial services. As a part of one of our business growth areas, we have done awful lot of work in partnership with the MK University, management in terms of systems designs, and an overlap with tech in terms of drones, and thought leadership through sustainability and strategic consulting as well. So a real nice broad breadth of opportunities for you to apply that learning through the undertaking of an internship. As we have seen quite a big increase in interest for entrepreneurial business startups, there is another route that you can select if you wish around developing a business strategy and hopefully implementing that going forward, and the support services more broadly across the wider university we can touch on in the Q&A if you have some specific questions or interest in that arena. But there's a whole provision in place to help anybody in that kind of scenario, either developing a current business or indeed starting a new one. And then finally, the independent projects around anything to do with portfolio career, we tend to refer this to, but anybody that's working in a contractual capacity, keen to leverage their current experience in multiple projects or anything in a consultancy capacity. The 3 distinctive paths that students can choose, and you do have the option to change, because I'm very familiar that students' aspirations can evolve and most likely will do, not just through the undertaking of the course, but also through your interactions with your peers, the faculty, with us, with external client influencing those decisions going forward. So a real good opportunity for you to start applying and physically testing where the end result might take you. Click forward for me. So this is a bit of an overview in terms of our promise and support that we provide. And we are here to guide and support and give you all the resources you need to achieve that outcome. And as you can see, there are a host of elements here in terms of having one-to-one engagements with myself, with the leadership liaison officer, that's the individual I mentioned around internships and some of the project work, with my colleague who's with us today, Niels, in terms of employer engagement manager, and dedicated to sourcing and supporting recruitment processes and partnerships with clients for a senior level MBA appropriate hire. And one thing I did want to draw your attention to today as well is the elevator pitch. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of this phrase before, but it's essentially an opportunity for you to record a personal promotional video. And in our personal built studios at Martel House, it's an embedded video and a takeaway, and something we're only running for the MBA specifically. And you can have this alongside photos, CVs, workshops, anything that you want to embed it within that promotes you and the activities that you're engaged with post-completion. It's about making a first lasting positive impression and something that matters. And quite importantly, within the networking process, it's about standing out and standing out for the right reasons. So it's great fun. We're actually launching that today. So after this session, I shall be joining some of our current MBAs to go experience some of those key messages that they wish to put themselves out and essentially brand themselves in their wider network. So if you are connected, you may see some of those come to light in the coming months. But a great opportunity for everybody to take part in. Jump forward for me. So as you can see, there's a bit of an overview in terms of a timeline and where we embed our support, resources, workshops, information sessions. I won't go through them all today, but I'll touch on a couple of the key elements in addition to what was listed above on the prior slide. You will have the open opportunity to engage with executive coaching, and this is throughout the year. It's a process where you would work with a qualified career psychologist or practicing consultant to discuss any particular challenge you may be facing at that moment in time, whether it's careers or non-careers related, to help you sound off your ideas, give you a bit of a steer, and hopefully keep you on a path that aligns with those future aspirations. Alongside that, we also have our newly launched mentoring program, where we have a host of voluntary alumni offering a wealth of support to our current students, overlapping a multitude of industry sectors, giving you their professional insight. And that can be whether it's around the company they work for, whether it's around the industry sector they're currently working, the job function they currently have, maybe it's around the transition that they physically made and it aligns with a similar path that you're looking to take yourself. Great way to obtain some professional insight and align that research with how you can apply it going forward, and something that we would sound off and work together on with you as well. So a real great resource. In addition to this, and funnily enough, these are running from today as well, we also have our executive in residence, and that is running throughout the course of the year. And this is a joint initiative with our alumni relations development team and ourselves, where you will have the opportunity to gain professional insights from distinguished Cranfield alum that work at the board level. So ultimately getting an insight into what life's like at the top with senior execs. And this can be touching on anything from job search strategies, interview skills, techniques, maintaining momentum within your chosen career path, or dealing with any challenging professional dilemmas and things alike. Another great resource that's specifically for the MBA, and a great way for you to kind of sound off what your future may look like if you choose to pursue it. So an open opportunity to engage with all our alum, with our current students and everything alike, and our mentors through these touch points throughout the course of the year. And then on the final slide, we have our subscription resources. I don't want to go into all of them in detail, but again, for anybody that is interested in the leadership development programs, I probably didn't explain this particularly well, but the leadership programs, for anybody that's not familiar, it's an opportunity to position yourself and rotate around different areas of a business to gain a much stronger operational view of that business, with then a view to place you in a more mid-senior tier management role post-completion. So if anybody is interested and would like to explore that going forward, the resources within MBA Exchange and even WorkMaze, it's not definitive, but it's a huge resource of global opportunities, both on future leadership programs, internships, and of course, permanent recruitment and hire opportunities that are available to you throughout the course of the year. And of course, there are a couple of other resources. I've touched on VMOC, Graduates First, great resource for ability tests, aptitude, numerical, verbal reasoning, and a whole host of others that you can practice for free throughout the year and track, like on a performance curve, how you might like to improve or areas you may need some support with. And again, things that we can help you with moving forward. I hope that gives you a bit of an overview. I know I've kind of just thrown a lot of things at you. So if that moves us over nicely into the next phase, Jules, I'll hand back for the moment. And obviously I'm here for Q&A to give you any more specifics and drill down on anything as we go forward.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Stephen. That gives us a really good sense of the extensive careers support that our MBA students receive. We've just had a question just in regards to the subscription resources from Shweta. Good to see you on the webinar. So she's asked, is it possible for applicants to get partial access to the resources and learning packs before the classes commence?
So I can have a look at that. Historically, we invite you into the relevant resources and subscriptions when you need them so that you're not overloaded, because there is a wealth of information within our talent management platform Simplicity, which is where all these resources sit. So learning packs, once you've accepted and you then start to go through the registration or complete the registration process, and your information is then fed into Simplicity, then we can start to grant you access. And that's normally where we would send out the invites to the subscription resources. I can't give you a definitive answer on that, but you will definitely have access to certain resources way in advance of you arriving. If there's something specific you wanted to know a particular date, please do contact us on Cranfield Careers, and we can obviously try and grant you access or share information with you if you need it.
I'll also be kept very busy getting the CVs ready ahead of starting as well. Perfect. Okay, so we now have a few questions for our alumni before we go into our general Q&A. So Lottie, you finished your MBA last year at Cranfield. Why did you choose Cranfield?
Thanks, Jules. So I chose Cranfield for a few reasons, actually. I think that the statistics around it kind of speak for themselves from where I stood. But it was also the alumni connections, and I think I wanted somewhere where I knew I had access to great speakers, great industry links, so that I could explore and understand where I wanted to go in my career. But I also didn't just want to be a number. And I think when I had a look at some other one, I wanted a personal, people knew who I was, and that really shone through for Cranfield, and I think demonstrated itself throughout my year. So yeah, they were my main reasons.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't agree with it more. Very similar reasons. Okay, brilliant. And how did you find that the Cranfield MBA helped you transition into consulting?
Massively. So I mean, first of all, I think I'm a completely different person to the person who walked through the doors on day one, from a few points, confidence being probably one of the main ones. But well, I used to work for Tesco's, and so I looked after quality and safety for lots and lots of different food products, and I was very much the bridge between suppliers and buying team. And I wanted to do something different, and I kind of felt like something was missing. And so I think when I was at Cranfield, I always thought about consultancy, but actually you get the chance to bring it to life. So I spoke to lots of people like Stephen, who put me in touch with lots of great people who were already consultants and sort of spoke to me about what the day-to-day actually is. And I think hearing that experience, sort of the good and the bad of those sides, actually gave me a really balanced overview. But then putting into practice some of the consultancy skills, so working with small companies on consultancy projects who'd previously had links with Cranfield, helped me to understand what that consultancy journey might look like. And actually now I'm doing it, a lot of it is very, very similar. Maybe it's on a bit of a bigger scale now, but the broad strokes are very, very, very much the same.
Yeah, thanks for that, Lottie. I think that's really insightful. And I think it's really interesting for everyone on this call. You'll hear our alumni talk a lot about how you're not the same person at the end of the MBA as you are going into the MBA, certainly the same for me as well, and hence the sort of the Transformation MBA, because we do talk about it as a transformative experience and as a life-changing experience. Thanks for that. So you finished your MBA the year before in 2021. So how has the Cranfield MBA made a difference to your career?
Yeah, actually, as Stephen mentioned before, like usually there's a triple jump like in career, but for me, I did like double jump. So I've stayed in the same industry, but I changed the working location from like China to UK, and then I also like changed the roles. So like current role is I work with like different people, like all globally. So when doing like MBA in Cranfield, like we have like different learning teams, so we can work together with team people from different countries. So give me a better understanding how to work with people from different cultures and more effectively, and how to encourage them or motivate them, like to help you to get the goals you wanted. So, and also, actually, in my day-to-day like roles, I need to understand all the aspects of the business. So like marketing and the finance and negotiations, sustainability, which all being like taught in the different modules during like Cranfield. Yeah. So it's great. Helped me a lot during my career path. Yeah.
Fantastic. And if you could tell us a bit more about the power of the alumni network.
Yes. Also, like as Stephen mentioned before, like the career mentoring things. I think that in Cranfield, I think that a career mentoring was started the first year. It started when I was there. So we will be in simplicity. We can review the profiles of different alumni mentors to gather their insight to their careers and how they're able to support us. So we could reach out to them to seek for advice and guidance in their expertise and experience. After graduation, we like still engage with not only our cohort, but also alumni. We have like monthly pub like hosted in London. At that time, you can talk to different peoples and actually like give you just a recent examples. One of the alumni reached out to me like recently because I think he also like reviewed my LinkedIn profile, etc. So he needs my like knowledge and opinions on the project he's currently doing. So yeah, I think it's an easy way for like network and meet different people to get their expertise from different industry.
Yeah, thanks for that. And on the call, the alumni pub nights are really good fun. As Sweet says, you get to meet lots of different people and lots of different alumni. I'm coming up to 10 years from when I finished my MBA, and we still have a cohort group WhatsApp, which is very active. And we have people flying in, we go out for dinners. I've got some of my really close friends from the MBA. We go on holiday every year. You really form the bonds during your year at Cranfield, and you stay very close to, as we said, not only your cohort, but other cohorts that you and other alumni that you get to know as well. Brilliant. So we'll come back to both Lottie and Sweet in a moment with some more questions. So we will start the general Q&A. Please do keep your questions coming. We'll start with a few questions that we received ahead of the webinar first. One of the questions that we had was about the rankings. So really excited for the Financial Times full-time MBA ranking for 2023. Cranfield is 9th in the UK and 88th in the world. We are top 20 in Europe for career progression and value for money, top 5 in the UK for international mobility, number 1 in the UK and 15th in the world for student cohort sector diversity, and global top 25 for internationality of students. There is more, but I stop there. So yes, we're really excited about the Financial Times rankings. The next question that we had is one for you, Stephen, about our recent MBA career stats. Perhaps you can tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of data collection, so I'm assuming you're all quite familiar with the FT rankings and where we position, and we're really pleased with coming back in at the level that we have. But in terms of the submission and where that data is collected, so year on year, obviously we do everything within our power to support students in realising those outputs. And we're quite pleased that even given some of the slowing markets and obviously with some of the current environment, that we've maintained around about an 87% at 3 months out. So that's only one cutoff point and one recording. So beyond that, obviously, it still will continue to increase, but a really, really good kind of consistent output over the last couple of years of those that have found opportunities. I wonder whether that feeds over, Jules, into maybe some of the sectors and where some of the students have gone. Would you like me to share anything on that side as well?
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I know one of the things that we normally get asked around support for and the success ratio for international students, and of course we're a highly diverse and very international cohort of students on our MBA programs here at Cranfield. So students that are securing opportunities are, you know, are covering that international breadth. And some of the areas that we find that students historically have moved into are where we're finding some of the growth areas even now in terms of logistics, supply chain, distribution, operations, pharma and healthcare, anything to do with digital, cybersecurity and machine learning and AI. I'm sure you're quite familiar with being quite big growth areas anyway, and anything to do with corporate sustainability and anything on that remit from the circular economy side of things as well. So they're definitely areas where we're seeing a lot of growth across the board. And just to kind of highlight that, I'm just trying to think back of some of the profiles of students, and me and Niels were talking about this morning. It was so great to see some of the students that have made some of those transitions, which is why it's great to have Sweet with us. I was going to talk about you, Lottie, as well, but obviously as you're with us, I'll let you do that. In terms of a transition into management consultancy within the Big Four, but some of the other institutions and sectors that overlap. So some of our internationals, so a couple of our Nigerians, for example, one recently moved over into Barclays in corporate finance, sits within that statistic, of course. We've had other people that have secured into other roles here in the UK as well within a similar sector. An overlap. I'm just trying to think of maybe something from a slightly different sector, without naming anybody, of course. We've had people that have moved over into kind of business intelligence and analyst roles and product manager roles. So in terms of transitioning, we've had people that have moved in elevated roles, so maybe stayed in sector. I'm trying to think of somebody that's the individual that moved over within a senior marketing role, but within a slightly different sector. And I'm thinking it was more sales biased than marketing that moved over into GE Energy, for example, and other people that moved over into business strategy roles. So it's a real diverse mix, and there's always an interest within professional services, consultancy, of course, financial services and major banks, for example. So we've had some really great success on that side of things. I mean, it all comes down to the student and how proactive they are at driving this process. But obviously we'll do everything within our means to support you to achieve that outcome. And probably one thing I didn't mention, Jules, in the presentation is that we run what's called lifelong continuation service. So, you know, all these individuals that are secure now, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, may be looking for their next elevation or transition, and therefore are able to come back and have all the same support that they've always had when they were with us. So please do bear that in mind. We run a lifelong continuation support service. So as and when you need, we're here obviously to provide that provision for anything careers related you might need.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Stephen. So we've had a question from Sumia to you, Stephen. If there are any resources available to help students secure internship opportunities outside of the UK as well?
Yeah, so the new module, the 3 kind of paths that you can choose, predominantly that's geared for UK based, mainly for managing some of those partnerships, but our partnerships are global. So across the board, whether it's for the internship process or not, a lot of the clients that we work with that either come to campus or virtual, which is what we're seeing a lot of at the moment in terms of online hosted sessions. are global. So they'll have opportunities across the board wherever they may have headquarters or subsidiaries or operations, of course. So yes is the answer. You may have noticed that one of the last slides I mentioned with WorkMaze and MBA Exchange, they're global platforms. So you'll see jobs across Europe, US, UK. The platform itself is a US centric site, but we've added all the filters in so that you can have direct UK feed or Europe or wherever else you may wish to select. And you can then drill down on particular sectors, particular functions, and of course the geographical locations of interest, build a profile and have those alerts and opportunities sent directly to you. And you can do that within our talent management platform for our careers partners as well. So anyone that comes specifically to recruit the talent here at Cranfield will post opportunities, whether it's an internship or a permanent role, and you'll be able to log on, create your profile, set the alerts up, and just apply when they come through. You can do that throughout the entire year. We will host an intro session in orientation week. And like I said at the beginning, we don't want to overwhelm you. There's quite a lot of information to take in. So we want to integrate you into the software and how to make it work for you. So we will introduce you to resources when we believe the majority of people will likely need to access them at that moment. But yes, global resources for global opportunities.
And also just to, thanks for that, but also just to bear in mind that you will have the month abroad with one of our partner business schools, where you'll take elective modules and also complete an international consultancy project as well. So we're really excited about that too. Just while we're on the same topic of internships, we've had another question come through, Stephen, about what kind of support can students get if they wish to secure an internship or a job outside of the Cranfield partnered companies.
Okay, so two areas. As a part of the embedded module for the careers pathway, if you choose to select the internship as something you wish to explore, you can self-source. And you can do that via working with myself, with my colleagues in the employer engagement side, with Niels, of course. If there is any companies of interest, you'd probably take the initial lead on that. But we will obviously support and give you ideas of companies and alumni and people that have historically recruited. And of course, if a relationship isn't there, then maybe we might be able to help you with making that connection to explore an opportunity if it wasn't automatically or already visible in the public domain. But if it was a part of the internship module in back end of term 3 and 4, then you will work specifically with the internships project liaison officer. He's tailoring the clients and the partnerships, and as much as he can, the projects to align to the aspirations of the current students. So you'll work quite intensively in that first term, probably more so with that individual than myself. Well, he'll map out a bit of a profile. We run what's it's an ABC survey, but essentially it's just asking you some basic questions about prior experience, interest, overlaps, and then more importantly, your preferences post-completion. And that will then help feed what the project liaison manager will then go source or help to source projects that align or internships align with those aspirations. So you'll get support across the board is probably the easiest answer.
Thank you for that. So question for Lottie, and Sue, please add in your experiences as well. We've had a question from Viraj about any business simulations. So Lottie, if you could maybe talk about your experiences.
Yeah, so I think there's a few actually. So as part of the modules that you undertake, one of them you have a press conference sort of simulation, which is effectively where you're given a problem, a pretty big one, and as your team, your learning team, which you work in, you have to handle this press conference, which they get real journalists in, you're recorded, and then you get the opportunity to sort of review it. And actually you get the opportunity to do it twice, which is really good because you can really see the marked difference between the first one where you probably look like a deer in headlights to the second one. And I think for me especially that was really useful because you don't often get the opportunity to look at a problem and understand crisis management in that extent of like real life. Okay, what are we going to do? Because normally when you're going to be sat in that position, anything you say. And it's really interesting to see how the journalists sort of take one word out of what you've said or one sentence and manipulate it into what that can then spiral down into. So I think that's probably like one of the big ones that springs to mind. A couple of the others were actually competitions. So as part of the MBA, you have the opportunity to take competitions. So I took part in VCIC, which is a venture capital competition, which was incredible. You get the opportunity to act like a VC would effectively. My team actually ended up going out to the States as part of the global finals, which again was an amazing experience to work with a US university and understand a lot of that, again, building that network further, enhancing that for all of us. Through that, you very much act as a business, and you get to you're exposed to businesses who are pitching to you for investment, which is really interesting. And then we also did ICBCSC, which was an American competition as well, where you run a business simulation. And that is very much about making decisions on ordering, financing, how you're going to manage your stock, how you're going to sell it, how you compete in a market. And so that was kind of a very broader sort of business simulation, but you all took on roles. And the team that I worked in for that, we chose to take on roles that didn't naturally fit our sort of skill set, because it's that safe space to try things that you might not otherwise try, and then experience it and actually get feedback from your team as well. So they're probably the three that spring to mind, Jules.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Lottie. And so is there any additional ones that you had as experience?
Yeah, I also did some competitions. Like one is like Harvard case studies. Like you've been given a case and then you work as a team to solve it and then present it back. And then the other one is Morgan Stanley Sustainable Challenge. I think at that time we present in the end we prepare a proposal. Like we said we want to do a bond, but how does that bond coming from, or how that works? So yeah, that's one of the things we did at my time. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you for that. So one of the other questions that we often get is about the opportunities to work directly with business for projects. So Lottie, did you have experience working directly with businesses for some of the projects that you did?
Yeah, so I worked directly with a couple of businesses for DMDA, which is like a data analytics project. So you really analyze data, understand it, and that kind of fed into a lot of the consultancy skills that I developed. And so I worked with a chocolate company, which was really interesting, really, really cool, lots of good samples. And so we worked with them in terms of understanding their customer base and what they could do potentially. And then we also worked with, as like an independent project, I did an independent group project as a team. We sort of looked at a website for a company and how that could potentially develop into something further on the back of some of their opportunities. But I think it's really interesting because you get the opportunity to sort of choose where you work and experience sectors that you might not have otherwise experienced, or work with them. And I think that was really, really good. And a lot of my cohort especially fed back that was really beneficial.
Amazing. Yeah, choosing your company based on what samples they can provide is important. I think one of the companies I worked with was a microbrewery, and that was pretty good samples too. So how about you? Did you work with any businesses?
Yes, for DMDA project, we worked with McDonald's on their beef supply chain, which is, unfortunately, we didn't get any samples, but still a good project. Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think one of the questions we just had in is about the people who are able to secure internships outside of partnered companies. Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the first year that we're really running the internship program.
Yeah, very much so. I'd love to give you some of the metrics, but we won't know how they convert because that haven't happened yet, even for the current cohort. But it's definitely something that I know that students have asked for year on year, and that we've now implemented and embedded within the program. So it's a real great gain some commercial exposure. And even if I think back to some of the students I worked with when I first joined May 11, where students were saying, maybe not 100% certain of what the output is going to be yet, but I'd love to gain some international exposure, whatever that is. And if nothing else, that's exactly what you're going to take away from this process. So it will give you the opportunity to put your learning methodology and apply it in practice in a real life business environment. Hopefully that may extend into something more permanent or convert, of course, or at least give you something to strengthen your CV in terms of UK or another commercial piece of experience to elevate you into that next role, maybe beyond the internship itself. And that would be true with anywhere. Obviously, we can't sit here and give you a definitive guarantee every single one of those is going to convert. That is always asked, and there is, I can say for the majority of the internships, there has already been conversations around the projects potentially extending beyond what's already been offered in terms of the scope for the accreditation purposes of the program, and some that may then extend into permanent opportunities. But that's what we're here for. And regardless of whatever that outcome is, you can continue to work with myself, with Niels and the broader team within Careers. And of course, we'll help you to try and align and find that permanent role if it isn't the internship itself.
Thank you. And I think the other thing, just to kind of build on what Stephen's just said, as Lottie mentioned, when historically you've been able to do an independent project where you can work with a company. So I know pretty much every year there are people that have gone out and chosen a company that they want to work with for an independent project, and that's been very successful. So historically we do have that scope where you are supported working with companies that you want to, that you've brought in as well. Just while we're talking on sort of working with different companies, Stephen, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about the opportunities to meet recruiting companies whilst doing the MBA.
Yeah, so we run a host of information sessions throughout the year, and whether that is on-campus recruitment, whether it's industry insights, and it can be returning alum from their current position within an organization. It could be that they are maybe just, well, not just parting their information, but maybe they may have a specific need at that moment in time that they're recruiting for, whether that meets your profile or your need or your interests at that moment in time. It's a brilliant opportunity to network and gain a professional connection with somebody that you might be able to leverage at a later date when there is something more appropriate. So some of the bigger brands that have come, whether that's on campus, and as I said, there has been a bit of a growing trend for it to be more virtual at the moment. So if we're seeing them online presentations, a great way for you to interact, ask questions, build a bit of a rapport, and hopefully promote yourself in a positive light that you can leverage at a later date. I'm a massive advocate of that anyway, because ultimately you want these networks to be yours going forward. So the more you put yourself forward and drive and own this process, the more beneficial it will be when it comes out the other side. And I know from historically from other students that have been very proactive, they open up a lot more opportunities a lot quicker for themselves by doing that. So yes, we run those on site. We'll run some off-site. We might just promote other opportunities where other companies. So, for example, we've historically had some from PwC and others, being such a big global brand. They run their own events on their timeline. So we just promote the fact that they're running them for you to attend. And if anybody hasn't yet, I know they run a virtual park for some of their recruitment now, which is quite interesting if you've ever created yourself an avatar and want to traverse the world of PwC and speak to people. It's like playing a computer game, but that's quite interesting. But outside of that, there'll be, as I mentioned, speaker series, networking opportunities, and anything alike. We run other bespoke careers events throughout the year, like the business and leadership events, steered more towards a more experienced or definitely a management level individual. We'll have other specific themed events around technology. I think one for the School of Water, Energy and Environment we're running soon, but that's more of an information session. So some of our faculty that are consultants and advising out in industry, and vice versa, some industry professionals coming in to give some guest panel talks, so you can join and network with those individuals. And of course, then direct recruitment through supply, through Simplicity, whether that's with a partnered client or through the aggregated feed of MBA level appropriate jobs that you can apply to. And then that would be outside of our partnerships directly as well, but still central source to find opportunities for you to network or apply for something physical. And obviously we work with you throughout the year to help you with that timeline and steer you in the right kind of direction based on the conversations that we have. But I would say that you own the process, and we very much support you throughout that. So do be proactive, do engage, do utilize the resources when you arrive. And yeah, you'll find that that end path becomes a lot easier, a lot quicker.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Stephen. Just to build on that, Lottie, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add about the Bethany Centre speakers.
Yeah, so I think the Bethany Centre is like our entrepreneurship centre, and actually you have the opportunity to meet some incredible speakers. So some of the ones that spring to mind were Nick Jenkins, who set up Moonpig. There was the guy who set up Topgolf, Steve, his surname escapes me now, but lots of great companies that you can instantly sort of recognise, and you have the opportunity to understand sort of how they started their business and set up their journey, but also then network with them and build that network beyond just understanding them. And so I'd really encourage anyone to engage in that, because for me that was sort of a real highlight as well.
I'm conscious of time and only having a few questions left. So we have had a question about best highlights of the MBA. And just on that, we've also had a question about, is there anything you would do differently or want to change about your MBA journey? So if I go first to Lottie and then to Sweet, if you can combine those questions.
Sure. So I think if I start with highlights, for me, it was probably the competitions. I mean, going out to America, working with a US university, just understanding how that is different in some respects, was incredible. Building my network, understanding about venture capital, I think it was never something that ever interested me or I'd really thought of before the MBA. And so how much the MBA opened my eyes to other things other than consultancy, but then also understanding that I've now gone into consultancy, but setting me up for that really, really well. I think the careers team did a really, really helped me in terms of landing that role and understanding how to land successfully in that. So they were probably some of my highlights. Doing stuff differently, I think I probably wish I'd maybe just been a bit more confident when I first started. Just got engaged a bit more with some of the other stuff, built my network a bit sooner. It would have helped probably open up opportunities a little bit quicker than maybe I found.
Brilliant, thanks for that, Lottie. And Sweet, how about you?
Yeah, sorry, just realized. So one of like the best highlights, I would say, like we joined different societies. One of them is like women in leaderships. So not only that the Cranfield will invite guests like to speak to us, like among the cohort, we can also invite our like people from our connections or our networks like to speak to the whole cohort, so we can have like more broader like speakers. So I would say like if you have connections, I definitely like invite the guests like to speak to others people. So if everyone do the same, then we will have like a lot of speaker sessions, and then we can hear people from different parts of the world and different industries. Yeah, if there's anything we can do it differently, yeah, I would say that, yeah, encourage people to use their connections to like benefit other people's. Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you for that. And just final question we've had about the application deadlines. So Helen, if I could go over to you about the application process.
Sure, no problem. I think most people's names I recognise through having submitted an application, but for those that haven't, just to say that the next application deadline is the 7th of May. And that's the recommended deadline for those who are looking to, who need a visa to study in the UK. Obviously, the earlier that we get into the system, then the less stressful it is to apply for visas once you've been made an offer and accepted and the like. So 7th of May for the next application deadline. Once you've made an application, if you're successfully called for interview, then that will be via Zoom. And we'll give you details of a 3-minute presentation that you'll be required to give at the start of your interview. And as part of the process, you'll be asked to think about scholarships. If you want to apply for a scholarship, we'll send you a separate application form for that. And that will be reviewed at admissions board at the same time as we review an interview feedback and things like that. So when you're made an offer, you're made an offer for a scholarship as well. So you have everything there to be able to make your decision. And once you're made an offer, you have 1 month to decide if you're going to accept that offer and then secure that place by paying a deposit.
Fantastic. Thanks for running through that, Helen. So just wanted to say thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And as Helen said, for those of you who haven't applied, please do apply before the 7th of May deadline. Any questions that you have, please reach out to MBA inquiries at cranfield.ac.uk. We'd be very happy to set up a one-to-one call with you to run through anything. For those of you with offers, make sure you look out for the acceptance and deposit deadlines and apply for the campus accommodation. There is high demand and it goes very quickly. Please also look out for our next webinar, which is on the 19th of April for the MBA Masterclass and Programme Q&A. You can register on our website. I look forward to speaking again soon. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.